I'm Andy Murray, the Executive Director of the Major Projects Association, and I'm also the co-chair of the engagement workstream for the Project Data Analytics Task Force. The Major Projects Association supported Project Hack 11, run by the Project Data Analytics community and Projecting Success. We asked our members to bring their challenges and come along to see what's possible from a 2-day hackathon. This is the first of a pair of podcasts and includes interviews with various people at the hackathon, as well as some observations made over the 2 days in early October 2021. The second podcast includes a further set of interviews of the teams who worked on the winning solutions and also from some of the judges who reviewed them. I arrived this morning to a very busy reception area at the Hallam Conference Centre in central London, just down from Portland Street. And what struck me first was a real diversity of those people that have come along to the hack. And that's by way of gender, ethnicity, age, but also roles. So there are people here that are data scientists, data analysts, project professionals, and those are perhaps in project delivery or PMO, and also a real mix of seniority, if you like, or experience rather. So some people that are perhaps a few years out of graduation, and others senior execs who have come along either to contribute or just to see what's going on. Right, I'm sat here with Martin Paver, CEO of Projecting Success and founder of the Project Data Analytics Task Force. So Martin, what is a project hack?
So it's a great question, Andy. So it's an opportunity to bring a load of like-minded people together and solve problems which are sort of facing the profession and the industry at the moment. So we take real-life challenges, and we've got quite a few today. We've got 14 challenges here today. We bring together project professionals, we bring together data scientists and data professionals, and people from the Project Data Academy as well. And they come together, and it's a group of people who's probably never met before in their lives. We have teams of 6 people. They probably spend the first 30 minutes arguing about what they're going to do. Then they spend 30 minutes start to shape the problem. And then after that, they start to get stuck in. So they break into sub-teams and they start to work up their solutions.
And it seems that's where we're at the moment. So we're sort of just around midday on day one. So the teams seem to have formed. I think they've mostly selected their challenges now, and I guess they're now trying to work out their top level approach to dealing with those challenges.
So you've probably seen this morning, it's all down to the quality of the pitch as well from the people presenting the challenges. So there's a lady called Jo Stanford from the NHS. She did a superb job, and she's got 16 people there who's solving Jo's problems for the NHS. And that's looking at these 10,000 project professionals across the NHS and working out from those project professionals what their skill profile is and where they need to go in terms of career progression and what we can do in terms of apps and solutions to improve that. So I think what's going to happen now is we'll see these teams now start to turbocharge. We'll start to see a lot of tech support coming in. They'll start to get into things like machine learning models and Power BI and things like that. And this is when we start to really build in the tech support.
Yeah, there's some great challenges there. I thought the mix of challenges was really interesting. So we had what I would call a couple that were based upon shaping the project portfolio. So we had one from UK Power Networks around helping them shape their investment pipeline as to where they should be doing their substations and their enhancements for patterns of new EV purchasing. And then we had similar from Transport for London around predicting flood and other weather-related impacts on their assets. So again, informing where they would prioritise their capital investments. And then we had some that Jo's from NHS was mostly around capability. And then we had, I think most of the others were really focusing on aspects of project delivery. So it was a fascinating mix. So Martin, what motivated you to do your first hack or organise your first hack, and when did you do it?
So it started 3 years ago actually, Andy. So the first hackathon was 3 years ago tomorrow. We've had 11 hackathons, so this is our 11th today. And we started it because there's a lack of people who really got project data analytics. They didn't understand what it's all about. So we started the Project Data Analytics meetup in December 2017, and that's now grown to about 8,000 people. That was great just to share what people thought and share some tips and experience, but it's not enough to really understand what Project Data Analytics is all about, how to go about solving a problem, and the pace of being able to solve problems as well. So what we do in terms of the first hackathon, we teamed up with Sir Robert McAlpine, and they very kindly sponsored it at the Microsoft Reactor. And what we did then was we brought a load of people together, there's about 60 at the time, and we solved a lot of problems. And one of the problems was Kia working with Sir Robert McAlpine collaboratively on snag data.
Right.
And that got us going. And what came out of that was a lot of inspired people, and they really understood the art of the possible with Project Data Analytics, and they understood that it's accessible, and all this stuff which is available in the cloud, and a lot of people didn't understand before, because we sort of teamed them up with data scientists, we just inspired them, and it took away all of this fear. Yeah, it took away the barriers.
It's really interesting to say that, Martin. So at our conference recently, we looked at the last 40 years of lessons from major projects, with the association being 40 years old. And we also did a spotlight on, we called it Tomorrow's World Today, but things that were happening today that many people would regard as being futuristic. And I really think that Project Data Analytics is in that space. People think that some of the things you're talking about are futures, but actually they're available right now and pretty much low cost with off-the-shelf products.
So in terms of this tech, it's all there today. There's loads of companies using it. Amazon's using it, eBay's using it. There's loads and loads of this tech at the back of organisations.
So there's a good chance then that these organisations have licenses for this, these systems and products, as a part of their enterprise setup anyway.
So it's all, in some organisations, it's freely accessible because it's just part of a bundle licence, yep. And you can just pull it down, and some is a pay-per-use basis. But it's not expensive. And once we start to get into this in bulk, and I think part of the problem today is that if we don't understand the power of the data in data analytics, we'll never get to the point where the data is good enough so we can drive the insights out of it, because we value data as an exhaust plume, not as an asset in its own right. So if we see that this data codifies the experience of project delivery, so then when we start to value it, we start to drive up its quality, we start to drive up the volumes, and at that point we can then start to do all this very clever stuff in machine learning. And I think in a lot of organisations at the moment, the data's probably not good enough because they've not aligned it with the problems they're trying to solve, and just throwing machine learning models at it is not necessarily going to work, because you need to think through the overall problem space.
Yeah, it's quite good to, that valuing data is a critical step in getting value. And it's great to see, with the Major Projects Association, I've been calling it sort of a major projects takeover of your Project Hack 11, but it's really inspired the members, and we've got, I think, 10 of the 14 challenges that are here today have come from members, and I think we've got a decent number of senior execs coming along just to see what's going on. So hopefully that's going to translate into valuing data more as a result of these sorts of events.
I think it's bigger than just valuing data, Andy. I think it's about changing people's sort of perception of project delivery. It becomes really exciting as well, because we're now starting to get into forecasting and predicting the future, right? So it's not just forecasting through straight line estimates. It's now starting to say we can use all of this data of the past to anticipate the future. So if you can imagine that the job of a project professional is to preempt some of this stuff, if we start to do that, it starts to drive up the value of a project professional. So if you can save 5-10% on a project because you can save all of this money and you can bring it back in and give it a greater investability because you've got more delivery confidence, then it makes sense for the management team, and they're going to start to reward us for it. So I think it's a really exciting career. I think it'll be a different career to being a standard project professional. And I think those people who are pathfinders on this will really change the future.
Yeah, and it's going slightly off-piste, but I noticed the T-shirts that people are wearing at the hack here. So we've got, as I mentioned in my introduction, a real variety of people, including quite a number of apprentices. and the apprentices aren't, in their 20s, but generally are they? We've got some quite, people that, how can I say this politely, but they've been around for a while in their careers, and they've come late to the apprenticeship scheme. And I guess it's those people are realising they just need to retrain and get that new skill set, because that's where the future's going.
So the apprenticeship scheme, it pivoted about 4 or 5 years ago, Andy. So it was something for 16, 17-year-olds, that sort of age. And it pivoted because the UK government said the UK sort of productivity is falling behind, and it's falling behind because we're not investing enough in people's development, and we're not staying up with the latest thinking. So they start to tax organisations basically with a pay bill of more than £2 million, and they tax them at 0.5% of their revenue. And that's to go into a training pot, and if they don't spend that training pot within 2 years, then the taxman keeps it. So what they're trying to do is to inspire organisations to train their people on lifelong learning. This is not something where you just go to college and do a degree, or you do an apprenticeship, you get no more training for the rest of your life. This is saying basically is that this technology is moving at pace, and the job of a project professional is going to be transformed massively. So I'll just give you a great example. So a project controls apprenticeship is a level 3.
That's that sort of A level, is it? Is that the equivalent, or is that level 4 A level equivalent?
It's between A level and HNC in old money.
Okay.
Right?
Yep. So good qualification.
Yeah. And a level 4 is a HNC equivalent. Right. It used to be foundation degree, but they've changed the definitions now. I think a level 5 is a foundation degree, but they used to call it a foundation degree as well. So the project controls apprenticeship at level 3 is 3 years for a standard project controls apprenticeship that you'd have probably done in the 70s or 80s. The project data analytics apprenticeship is 12 months long, and it's on practical learning, and it's the next level up. So I think my challenges to the project controls community is, why have we not adapted to the times?
Yeah, so it's a case of, at the moment there's a specialist apprenticeship around project data analytics, but at some point all project-based learning, or all learning for project professionals, will need to include data analytics as a core element of it.
It needs to be accelerated. This stuff is with us now. If you're not good at this, you'll fall behind, right? If your peers start to get good at this and they start to really transform your organisation, those are the people who's going to shine. So I think that project data analytics probably needs to be part of every project professional's job. But I'd question whether we can just bolt this onto project controls and it becomes a project controls and data analytics apprenticeship, because it's a big topic. Right? We spend 12 months teaching people on this, and we run hackathons specifically solving project data analytics problems where you've got to code in Python and this other stuff. So I think it's a blend of doing a bit of project controls, learning how to plan and do cost sort of engineering and that sort of stuff, and then topping it up with this concept around project data analytics. So I think it's a blended learning. It's not just going in the old school, I go and learn about project management and I go and learn about project controls. I think you pick and mix, and I think you can add project data analytics into that mix as a top-up qualification.
Sounds great. So I could talk to you for a lot longer, Martin. As you know, we chat about project data analytics a lot, but I'm really keen to get around the room, and in particular I'm going to go and chat to some of the apprentices here. So I'll leave it there, and perhaps I'll come back to you later on over the hack. Thank you, Martin.
Thanks, Andy.
So I'm with Joe Stanford from Health Education England, but Joe, you've got a PAN NHS role as well, is that right?
So thanks, Andy. I as well as having the day job of Head of Corporate Portfolio Office for HEE, I've been leading a programme to develop the project profession in the NHS, working with my counterparts as a collaborative in the other arm's length bodies, and with leads from across the regions representing trusts, clinical commissioning groups, and sort of every part of the NHS, all working collaboratively to develop the project profession.
So Joe's also expert or excellent at doing a pitch. So the way that the hacks work is that there's a number of challenges presented. So there were 14 challenges that were offered up. Joe went last, but I don't think it's just because you went last, but it was it was the best pitch. And you've ended up with 5 teams working on your challenge.
Yes, absolutely. So I've got 3 teams in the building and 2 online, and I have to say that's keeping me busy because they're all coming for information and to check things out and to test ideas with me and stuff, which is absolutely fantastic. Yeah. There's an amazing bunch of people. But again, I think what I've learnt is, particularly around developing the project profession, you can try and get the right people in the right roles in the right organisations, but if they don't have the passion and the interest and the energy to do something, you won't get very far. So I sort of stopped doing that, and I just went out and said, who cares about this? Who's interested? Who's got the drive and understands the vision and wants to go on the journey with us? And therefore, in terms of the development of the profession, I've got those people together as a crew to really put their energy into making this happen, and therefore they do. So
yeah, that's great. So just a quick précis then of the challenge that you set out that these teams are working on.
So at the moment, there is no central coordination of the project profession in the NHS. Nobody owns it and nobody's responsible for developing and managing it. So we do it as a collective. And part of the challenge we have is we don't have a register of project professionals. So we don't know where they are. We don't know what level they're at. We don't know what the balance of equality and diversity is. We've got some very raw data, so we've got some indicators, but what we don't have is real tangible data that helps us to manage the existing workforce, to support them with careers, to support them with talent management, support access to opportunities and improve that. We also don't know at the moment what the demand's going to be and where it's going to be. So what the challenge is for them to take some of the data we've got now, which isn't complete, and to use their amazing insights and experience to come up with some really creative ways for how we could both create the data, model it, and then use it to help build the project profession, build the right skills in the right place, the right time, and make sure that we can plan for the future so we can keep it going and meet the future challenges as they come along.
Yeah, so I've been wandering around, as you know, talking to the various teams throughout the yesterday and today, and I'm pretty impressed with the progress that's been made. So in part 2 of this podcast, if you like, so we're going to be talking to the 4 best teams that are at the awards ceremony at our 20th of October seminar. And I suspect with 5 teams there's a good chance, Joe, that one of your teams will be making the final 4. What are your thoughts?
That would be fantastic, and I think it would be a real recognition for those teams for all of the hard work they've put in. They're very different teams, so some of them are very new to it, so we've got some apprentices, it's their first hack, they're new to data analytics, and so this is a really learning experience for them. Certainly some of the teams are experts, they're professionals, they're here because they're interested in the challenge, they're doing some team building. So I think we're going to get a real mix of results. And in a sense, it's not necessarily the sort of the depth, but it's actually the creativity that is going to make a difference in terms of how they come across. But I think the really valuable thing for me is that all of them care about the fact that what they're producing will help to make a difference for us in the real world, supporting the NHS, supporting the project profession, and that there's a real sense of reward for them to be able to do something that's going to make an impact.
Yeah, I've been mightily impressed by the things that you're likely to be able to take away and apply straight back into your work or into your role, really.
And I have to say, I'm extremely grateful for the teams, not only for the incredible hard work that they're doing and their knowledge and insight, but also their very generous offer to help me to understand what I can do with it afterwards, because I'm not the expert and I need them to direct me in terms of and how can I make best use of this. And that's a level of generosity in terms of their time and effort that goes above and beyond.
Great. Well, I'm not going to hold you up any longer. Thank you very much, Joe, and hopefully see you in a few weeks' time at the when we find out the winners.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andy.
Right, I'm here with James and Sheldon from Gleeds, and they're what I would regard as hack veterans, having been to a few provided challenges and worked on challenges. So thanks for speaking to me today. So just give us a bit of an outline of the challenge that you put forward for this hack.
Okay, so our challenge this time is all around life cycle costing. So we were very aware of the government construction playbook that came out recently. And truthfully, there's nothing new in there, but it's one of the main things in there is around should cost modelling, and a big part of that is around the life cycle costing. And we think that the industry is not very good at being able to give that early advice on life cycle costing of an asset, at the sort of feasibility stage. So we want to create an app that makes it very, very simple for anyone preparing a capital cost estimate for a project at the same time to get a good idea of what the life cycle is, so they can start looking at options. So that's the challenge. What can we do in 2 days to turn a basic cost plan into a more rounded, holistic life cycle costing, which could then take us to the next stage at some point to get a full should cost model solution.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a holy grail, hasn't it, in terms of whole life costs in the asset management realm for a while, and it's often seen as something distinct or separate from project management. So I think it's a nice hack that brings those two things together and in a practical way. You've participated in hacks before, so tell us your experience. I think you've run a hack, haven't you?
Yeah, so we've done 2 previous hacks. We did 9 and 10, and 9 was our first one, and somehow we managed to win it. The first one we did, our hack was all around a material price tracker, which is actually quite timely now with what's going on, but obviously we had some kind of sixth sense of what was to come with material prices, and it was a really cool challenge because it was all around web scraping. So it was using real data sources, some government data sources, and creating a real-time tracker so you can monitor how various material prices and labour prices are fluctuating in various areas, and we've actually productionised that within Gleeds now. So that's something that's being used within the company.
So something that you didn't hack 2 days has now gone back to the workplace and in use.
And improving. So obviously within the hack, you do a sort of proof of concept or a minimum viable product. So for that particular one, we did say 3 materials. It was steel, timber, and labour rates. And what we want to do is start adding more and more materials onto it, and the scalability of it and where it can go is really big actually. So we think that's got a lot of legs, and we're just going to keep iterating and iterating. So what's cool about the hack is you can come out with something that works as a proof of concept, but it's actually what's really good is what happens afterwards when you realise, wow, well, where can this go?
Yes, yeah, because it can be applied in other aspects too. So do you mind if I ask your backgrounds? Because one of the things that impressed me, if you like, or I noticed immediately, is the mix of people we have here. We've got project professionals, data professionals, people from project delivery or in sort of PMO, and so on. So what's your background?
So we're both humble QSs.
QSs,
as trained as QSs, and I've been with Gleeds for about 20 years. So sort of worked my way up through there, but I've always had this interest in data, and I've always seen that this is the way it's going. So to see this traction being gained in the industry, and organisations like Projecting Success and big organisations like the Major Projects Association supporting it, I think that's a huge step change. I think just in the last year I've seen this traction being gained, which is exciting.
Yeah, I've said it many times, but we sort of codify our lessons and our experiences, and eventually they make their way into methods and bodies of knowledge and frameworks and so on. And it's only taken us so far, and we've got to I think take that data-driven insight approach to making decisions.
Absolutely. I mean, I say it over and over again that the industry actually has so much data, and we just don't use it anywhere near enough. So even if we can make that change from whatever we're using now and increase it by 10%, that's going to have a big step change, and then it will just exponentially grow. So I think we're at the very beginning of that journey, and people are starting to see the value of data, still kind of understanding how that's going to work in a project environment. And like from a QS, it's in a way simpler, because what we do is all figures and numbers, so you can kind of visualize things a bit better. For PMs, I think it's slightly more difficult, and that's why the hacks are important, because you come away with it and you realize, okay, that's the application of data in project management. And you've seen all the challenges we've got in this weekend. They're incredible. I mean, I was saying to Martin, there's not one dud challenge. I think there were 17 or something. 14 challenges, and not one dud one. And it just really makes you realize what's possible with data.
So another question I want to ask you is, there's been a discussion around skills and moving from sort of awareness into sort of levels of capability around data analytics. And I understand you're on the apprenticeship scheme for it. So why? In the politest way, you're not that young. So
that's the same question my wife asked. Right? But well, number one, it's quite nice to be able to call myself an apprentice at the age of 45. So, but in reality, when I started getting involved with Projecting Success and looking to put some of my team through as cohorts, I just asked Martin, well, can I do it? And he said, absolutely, because you can call it an apprenticeship, but it's like almost a foundation degree level. And I thought to myself, well, if I'm putting people through in Gleeds through it, then knowing what the course is about is quite important, so I can talk with some authority, and actually, and also learning those skills so I can have that sensible conversations with data scientists and data professionals, and that translator role that people talk about, I thought was quite important to me. So I thought, well, actually, I'm going to do this course, and it is a commitment, you know. But it's extremely rewarding, and the stuff I've learned on it is brilliant. And you know, you can put it into use in the hacks, but also we're putting it to use every day within Gleeds stuff that we're doing. And for me, just learning, like, you know, I'm never going to be a master programmer, but having a basic knowledge of Python enables me to recruit data scientists and ask some sensible questions around it. And we've actually done that. You know, we've started to build our data team. And funny enough, one of the data scientists we've recruited, we met at the hack, and she was on our team. And you know, that became a relationship. So it's also the best interview ground you can have. You know, you actually can spend 2 days with somebody and see whether they fit in, whether they get what you're doing, whether you get what they're doing. So yeah, I thought, well, actually, I'm going to go all in with this. I'm going to do the course. It's a bit of a commitment, but I think it's worth it. And you know, so far I've been really, really impressed.
Yeah, it's that being able to ask those questions and understand the responses you get with your teams is great. So, Jordan, so you know, you've been to a few hacks now. If there's people listening to this podcast thinking about coming to a future one, what would you say to them?
I would say give it a go. I really enjoy it. It's good to meet people. I mean, this is the first time we've actually done it in person. It's been virtual up until this point, but it's been really good. It's an eye-opener to see how we can try and move the industry forward. And basically, yeah, just jump in and have a go at it, really.
That's great. So I know you're working on a challenge at the moment, and there's a prize for the best hacks. I'm not going to take up any more of your time, and I'll let you go and carry on working on the challenge. Thank you very much.
No, it's a pleasure. Thanks very much.
So here we are, beginning of day 2, and the hackers, if that's the right term, everyone's back around their tables again and busy working away. So I'm joined by James, CTO at Projecting Success, and Warwick, Solutions Analyst. Is that right, Warwick? Yep. But more importantly, Warwick is the challenge coordinator, the challenge ninja, as I think he's more referred to, the person that puts significant effort in leading up to the hack to liaise with the challenge owners, get their challenges articulated properly, and more importantly, work with them on their data. So, got a question for you first, James. How does this one compare to the first hack, or what is it like back at Project Hack 1?
So, Project Hack 1 was a very different story, Andy. We had about 80 delegates. We had 2 companies, Robert McAlpine and the A14. We only had 1 sponsor. The challenges were great for where those companies were 3 years ago, but they've improved significantly in complexity, insights, and the engagement as well. So today, Project Hack 11, we've got 12 sponsors. I think we've got 10 different companies, have we, Warwick?
I'm losing track.
The challenges are much more insightful, much more complex, and the hackathon is really changing what companies are doing with their data. It's an incredible place to be right now.
Great, thanks, James. And Warwick, I introduced you as the challenge ninja. So tell us, what goes into preparing a hack, because there's a lot of people here, a lot of activity, and it's not just all turn up and have a go, is it?
No. Well, each of the challenges we bring are all prepared separately and individually with the challenge owners that bring them. So a lot of time is dedicated to each individual challenge to make sure it's sort of ready and appropriate and fits the theme of the event, but also specifically fits the sort of the need of the company that brings it. We always like to challenge people with real-world problems and things that have a real industry use or are something that can be used after the hack, or at least inform well enough on making sure they've got something to build on to take advantage of what they've learned. So we spend a lot of time working with the various challenge owners to try and craft and find out what the true problem they've got is, and make sure that we've presented it so the teams can sort of tackle it and really figure out the best way to solve their problem.
So if we have association members listening to this podcast and they're thinking of coming to a Future Hack with a challenge, what makes a good challenge? What would your advice be?
In my mind, it's all about how measurable the success of the challenge is. So having a clear idea of what it looks like to have done well. It's important to sort of have an idea of what the problem is, and any of the details and the sort of technical recommendations we can iron out and discuss and plan out. But to me, a good challenge that really does well is one where we've got that clear idea of what the user needs, and a great way to sort of measure when they've hit the nail and done brilliantly.
So, James?
I also think the relatability, if that's a word, of the challenge. So when you describe the challenge to someone, how many people does that challenge really resonate with? How applicable is it to multiple businesses? And that's when you really get buy-in from people, when it's not some kind of micro problem in an organisation that one person's really suffering with. It's when it's a macro issue where the challenge can be deployed and the benefit can be really scaled up.
Yeah, and one of our members yesterday, when we were chatting in the sort of networking session, the comment that he made, which I thought was really fascinating, was that all of the 14 challenges he could see being applicable to his organisation.
Yes, that really stuck in my mind.
I would like to take them all away and deploy them.
Right, yeah.
So, right. Let's talk about data, because not all of the challenges, but quite a number of the challenges have data that comes with the challenge. So some of them are using sort of public domain data. It's more about sort of the demand side of projects, if you like. But so if a member wants to come along with a challenge, you're going to say, and can we have some data too? So there'll be some reticence, I guess, or some concerns about anonymity or intellectual property or other things about providing their data. So what's the process for getting data sufficient for a hack?
So I always like to tell our participants who always have questions about the data that there's no such thing as enough data. Nobody's ever happy with the amount of data they've got, and it's never as accurate as you want it to be. What we really want is for challenges that need this kind of understanding, and we're looking to figure out something. We need to understand that the quantity helps a lot, and at Projecting Success, we think it's really important to bring data to the challenges, especially the ones that need it, and provide teams with that good foundation to start building a solution. But we also care a lot about the commercial sensitivity and the safety and privacy of people's personal information. So we've always held the standpoint that on our end, we're happy to support any challenge owner to anonymize and protect any privacy in the data. And I think a number of times we have been accused of being a little overprotective and perhaps overly protecting the privacy, but it's very important to us that there's no risk. It's part of our image that we make sure that we're always guaranteeing the safety of your data. So we're always there. We can explain how we do it, and we make sure that there is absolutely no risk with any data you bring, and anything that will have personal information on it or will have commercially sensitive information on it, we'll clean it up and make sure there's absolutely no risk to anyone who brings it.
And there's a data sharing agreement, or there's an agreement that's used as well. Is that right?
We have agreements, and a big part of that is making sure we're both happy with it. Mm-hmm. So when we work with the data, we spend lots of time guaranteeing the safety, checking every inch of it, as it were. Even if there's lots, we have automated systems to check through the data, and then we'll bring that back to you, show you what we've done, tell you what we've done, and make sure that you're happy with the data we're bringing.
So if lawyers need to get involved, I guess if any members are thinking about Project Hack 12, it's probably need to jump in now to frame your challenge and,
a lot of the
get
time,
that data discussion going.
In the first meeting I have with the challenge owners, I almost always say, here's some legal agreements, make sure you have the lawyers look at it soon.
Yeah. Brilliant, thanks Warwick. So James, last question for you. Project Hack 20, actually probably a question leading into that. When you did Project Hack 1, because you didn't call it Project Hack 1, did you think you did Project Hack 11? Was that part of the plan?
I think right back then we didn't know how successful the hackathons would be. We certainly didn't know that we'd be doing one every 2 months, that's for sure. The watching the maturity of challenges and with those challenges the data increase over time has been fascinating. So back in the early days we had companies that were just starting out their data analytics journey, so their data was relatively immature, and we've seen it really improve. The way that they structure the problems and the data they collect has really managed to improve the insights that they get from those challenges. What I want to see from future hacks is the adoption of data that's shared across multiple organisations. I think companies are realising they collect information and they're starting to solve the problems that they're having in their businesses. But if we start to pool the data that we've got on risk, on schedule, financial information, then the insights we can get can be significantly better than what we've got at the moment via the Construction Data Trust and also open source data sets as well. So I've got really big plans for the data and how we use it going forward.
Brilliant. So whilst we've been sat here talking, you've had 3 or 4 requests for help, and I think that's something that I've really taken away from today is the support you provide to the people here too, in terms of whether that's just technical support or help with the hack solutions. And you've even managed to get Microsoft to come along and provide some of their experts, who I'm going to go and talk to in a minute. But thank you very much. I'm not going to hold you up any longer, and I'll perhaps speak to you later.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you very much.
So I'm joined by Graham and Kwame from Microsoft, who come along to the Project Data Analytics Hackathons to offer their support. So welcome.
Thank you.
So I've got a question for you. How does this hackathon focus on projects compared to other hackathons that you support?
I think first and foremost, I'm stunned by the turnout and actually quite rather impressed. And it's great to see multiple members of both construction, civils as well, and the delegates turning up and participating. I would say, how does this compare? I'd say actually this is probably one of the better ones in terms of hackathons that I've attended in the past. You tend to get quite a mix of folks who turn up at general hackathons, dependent on the technology workload that's being sort of tested within the hackathon. You get a difference in maturity levels as well. And I think you've got the full spectrum here of those who are turning up who are quite new and find these elements of data sharing and low code, no code elements quite nuanced. And then you've got quite a few mature folks. So I'd say that it's a good range of skill sets and actually a good level of excitement and enthusiasm. So yeah.
So although I guess we have a view that construction, civils or major projects generally is perhaps slow to adopt some of these new technologies, but we can take pride then that our hackathon might be leading the way in terms of engagement.
Yeah, no, most certainly. And actually, I've been taken aback by some of this, the skills on display by some of the folks upstairs. I don't know about yourself, Graham.
Yeah, 100%. I think the energy and the excitement through the 2 days has been really impressive. I've been amazed at just how involved everyone is, and just the volume of people that have come along has been amazing, and actually the number of projects that have been pitched across it. I think we had 20 projects or something like that were pitched out for the session, which is just incredible to see the demand that's there for this work. The technology the guys are using, the various people are using has been really interesting, and how quickly they can turn something out of value has been really impressive, with the data coming in blind really without anything up front. So really cool to see what they do.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point that you mentioned there, Graham, around the speed. I think this is a hackathon over 2 days, so you can imagine if you had a full set of resources and almost like a full production team to enable and productionize some of these concepts at scale, some of the value that can unlock for both the contractors but also the civils as well.
Yeah, particularly when you're breaking across those organisational boundaries,
Exactly.
and some of the challenges that were brought were about those interface aspects.
I think more and more within this sector, we're seeing citizen developers, we're seeing people within business units and operating units doing more things with data, doing more things with our low-code platform, with Power Platform, to actually deliver solutions out for themselves. It's really great to see that innovation coming from within business, and that centre of excellence model where IT is supporting that has been really interesting to see grow over the last 12, 18 months within this sector. So I think it's a really important opportunity for organisations to get started and actually get value from a process improvement perspective, and also take advantage of the data that they've already got.
One of the things that's been, excuse me, has impressed me is that you talk about low code, no code, but the what's being used here is are sort of applications or capabilities within your sort of standard suite of products, so to speak. So we're not talking sort of DeepMind or something that's going to take sort of the energy grid to consume to run algorithms over a week or two. We're on about things that are available from a major projects association. All of our members would have access to the products that you guys are supporting. Is that right?
Yeah, no, most certainly. If we look at some of the primary data sources that the folks are using today, it's basically rudimentary Excel spreadsheets, but it's how are they aggregating that data, how are they setting that data up in the correct structure so that when it is consumed, when they do build those pipelines and visualize that data, it represents things of value, things that they can use in projects, and drives an interpretation and a sense of direction that can solve for some of the challenges, whether that's risk management, use cases, change management elements. How do they improve the efficiencies for project managers? And it's quite simple stuff, right? We know that time and materials data, for example, is often captured in spreadsheets and often manually entered. So how do you use these off-the-shelf tooling, if you will, to drive more efficiencies and more transparency, more cohesion as well?
Yeah, and if we can get huge amounts of insight from fairly low levels of analytics, it just shows you the power of data in the first place.
Most certainly.
Yeah. I want to put you on the spot. Predictions then. So perhaps in a year's time, 2 years' time, what would we be seeing in terms of data and digital innovation on projects? What are your thoughts?
So I think we're seeing a lot more interest in terms of accessing historical knowledge, historical information, historical data, using that for tendering for new projects, to take lessons learned, to bring that information in to understand how the next project is going to be successful or unsuccessful, for that matter, so it can be corrected earlier. Massive push in that space, both with structured data, with information around project plans and things like that, but also unstructured information from documents and things like that, and looking back historically about how things have run with previous projects. That's been a really key space. I mean, the other area we're seeing data being used more and more for now, unsurprisingly, is in the sustainability space. And I appreciate that's not directly related to project delivery, but it's so important across the board that we're seeing a lot more uptake in that, and a great opportunity for organisations to collaborate as well with joint ventures and things like that, to actually achieve something that's good for everybody.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. I'm not going to hold you up any longer, so thank you very much for that.
No worries, thank you.
That's all for part one, and what a great couple of days it's been. My key takeaways have been the real sense of community of those involved, of the drive for improvement and the excitement of being at the frontier of project practice. And there was a great energy too. Apologies for not recording more interviews through the 2 days, but I really did find myself getting drawn into the challenges and of discussing the approaches that the teams were taking to solve them. Just to give you a sense of scale, here are some numbers. There were 14 challenges provided by 12 organisations. Some 120 people attended in person, and there was a further 60 or so people who attended virtually. That resulted in around 25 teams working on real-world business challenges over just those 2 days that the hackathon took place. We also had a number of members from the Major Projects Association who attended as observers, and we organised 2 tours for them where we gave them a briefing from James, who you heard from earlier, and then they had a chance to spend some time with a number of the teams to find out how they were working on their challenges, and and the analytical tools and the data that they were using. There's also around 20 volunteer judges who are just starting to work now to review the solutions that were developed by the teams, and the top 4 will get a share of prizes provided by some of the sponsors of the hack. You can find out more about those when we review the winners, and I'll interview some of the winning teams and also talk to some of the judges in part 2 of this podcast. So hopefully I will be welcoming you back then.